Absolutely raging. Seething. I don't know. I actually find it really difficult to do a podcast. Here I am, somebody who likes to do podcasts, and I can't. I just think, what? I've got nothing to say. I can't find the words. I'm so livid. The depths of my anger, the stuff I have been hearing this week. It's just. It's driving me completely insane. The vocabulary is gone. I literally don't have the words to express the ways in which I am upset by the fact that, as we've heard from the officials in charge, the grey bins won't be getting collected until the 29th. The 29th of December, after Christmas. I mean, we're already struggling just through the regular year with the grey bins since they came in the summertime there, because it's 4 weeks, every 4 weeks just isn't enough. They need to get collected every fortnight. The amount of stuff, I mean, doesn't matter how environmentally friendly you try to be, try just having a normal budget, and getting your milk and your tins of soup and stuff like that. It's just tins and plastic cartons. Everything's plastic packaging. That's before you get into the amount of crisps that I eat. If you're having tins of beer and I think it's what they got to go in. They all got to go in the grey bin. And it's that's bad enough through the normal year. I spent most of the European Championship stood in the kitchen because we've got a television in the kitchen, and I was cutting up. I just passed the time watching games that were going to extra time and stuff like that. I passed the most time cutting up milk cartons and stuff like that to reduce the size of them, so I could get them all into the grey bin because I was that. My wife thought I was going completely mental, but she wasn't laughing when it came at the end of the month and I had a bit of extra space left in the top of the grey bin. But I knew it's Christmas time. I've got to put that stuff. And I will say, I mean, in fairness to the council, most of the dolls that I order for Christmas that I've asked Santa to get me, just to put in my doll's house. There's a whole room. It's a whole room just on my wee dolls and wee Victorian outfits and stuff. I love my wee dolls. I will keep them in the plastic packaging, and it's cardboard at the back and plastic packaging in the front, so you can see through and see Dolly in there. But because I might want to resell them on eBay, something, so it looks like they're still good as new. But nevertheless, amount of cans I'm going to be having, the amount of chocolates and that I'll be eating, just the back, there's cardboard stuff, obviously, that'll go in the blue bin, but there's so much stuff going into grey bins. I just cannot believe that they're not going to collect them until the 29th. That is definitely the thing that's been upsetting me most over the last, I would say, 4 to 6 days. How you doing, folks? This is your Fatek. Rangers are at home to Dundee on the 125th birthday of Ibrox, although it's not actually the 125th birthday. It's a bit like, the King and the Queen, they have their actual birthday and their official birthday, because the official birthday is the 30th of December. 30th of December 1899 was when Rangers played their first match at the current Ibrox, which is the second Ibrox, even though there's a case for saying it's like the third Ibrox. But you can't really say, because the three sides, the Broomlow, the Copland and the Sandy Jardine, they were all completely rebuilt in the 1978 to 1981. And the bit I'm in, the main stand, which is far older, so you can't time it, the different times of the stadium. And even then, we had the whole thing of filling the corners in the mid-90s, changing the seats to blue, lowering the pitch, putting the club deck on there, on top of like a third tier, basically at the top of the main stand. Argyle House get built on the back of the government. Things have been happening continually over the years to completely change the shape of Ibrox, but the main bit would be the main stand that I'm in. Well, that wasn't the main stand that we moved into on the 30th of December 1899, officially, with a 3-1 win over Hearts in what was the Intercity League. I need to look into this. I never really knew anything, but it seemed to be a short-lived tournament involving all Scottish teams, but Rangers didn't do particularly well in the Intercity League in its long life, but it seems to be in its very short life, but it seems to be played in between the actual league matches, which we won the league at that time. We'd won the league the previous season by winning every single game. All 18 games we played in that league season, and we were doing a 4 in a row. We won the league this season as well, but and the second Ibrox was getting built while we were playing at the first Ibrox, which isn't the first Rangers ground. I mean, we're different grounds from 1872 onwards. But I explained all this. I mean, I shouldn't have to go through this again, because I explained all this at the beginning of the Dundee United post-match reaction pod. And if you want to go back in there and look at that joyous piece of podding, the post-match reaction pod, it's fun-filled, the happiness staring out of me after we'd drawn 1-1 with Dundee United, a game that kicked off late a few weeks ago. Tomorrow will still be the first 3 o'clock kick-off on a Saturday at Ibrox this season, because the Dundee United game was delayed kick-off that day. Dundee United's bus was late. We dropped points. And I started that pod by just going on a ramble to get rid of the ambulance chasing Celtic fans that we always get when there's a bad result in these post-match reaction pods. And I did a whole thing about Ibrox, the history of Ibrox, and how the first Ibrox, the site of that, is kind of overlapped. The footprint is overlapped by the current Ibrox, but the main stand that moved into the current main stand that we have, which is the oldest part of Ibrox, it was in 1928, I think it was completed. So it was kind of 28, 29 years after we moved into the current Ibrox, the second Ibrox. It's fascinating stuff. Go back in there and if you want to see a grown man having a nervous breakdown while also being completely depressed, and doing a wee historical tour of a football ground that is no longer there, then just they go check out the Dundee United post-match reaction pods. But our last game at the first Ibrox was the 16th of December 1899, and we beat St Mirren 4-1 in the league. Now we had a point into was that at the old Ibrox? Because there was a game that we had to play, I think, was it at Meadowside, which was Partick Thistle's old ground, which when Partick Thistle weren't liars when they were in Partick. That might have been maybe that was when we moved. Maybe we moved from Kinning Park to Ibrox. I'll need to double check that. I just can't get the facts correct at all. I mean, Willie Collum will be on later on to tell you why this pod I'm doing right now is factually incorrect. There'll need to be a factual overturn. But I do know that the first game at the present Ibrox was the 30th of December 1899. So now I was at the 100th birthday party for Ibrox in 1999. Even though the game wasn't the same day, we beat Hearts 1-0 at Majorca Alberts. That was much more like the thing, because in 1899, the very first game at New Ibrox was this Intercity League game. We beat Hearts 3-1. And it was a hat trick scored by a guy called John Wilkie, known as Jack, from Govan. So a big German in 1999, and a big Govanite in, I don't know how big he was, in 1899. Jack Wilkie, he scored the hat trick against Hearts in that 3-1 win. First goal, second goal, and the third goal scored for Rangers anyway. I mean, maybe, I don't even know the times of the goals. Maybe Hearts scored the first goal ever scored at the current Ibrox. And we've got a statue of John Gregg, who grew up as a jambo outside the main stand. He's a Hearts man for Edinburgh. I know Sandy Jardine for Edinburgh. It's a great relationship with Edinburgh. But so I think tomorrow the best thing would be, because we're supposed to get, the Celtic fans are telling me we're going to get 3 penalties tomorrow. We're going to get 3 or 4 penalties in this game tomorrow. So we now know, of course, since last Sunday, that Jack Butland can put them away something fierce, the old penalties. So from Jack Wilkie in 1899 to Jack Butland in 2024, let's celebrate tomorrow with a Jack hat trick for the 125th anniversary of the second Ibrox preview pod, coming to you in association with Gersnet. Check out Gersnet tonight, the Gersnet channel on YouTube. It will be 9 o'clock live, and it's Craig hosting Ben, so that'll be a really relaxing. No controversy, no bitterness, no anger, no kind of desire to nail anybody to a cross and anything like that from the boys. Just a bit total chilled out zone, I would imagine, as they review everything that's happened since last Sunday and since last Sunday. That's Gersnet tonight, 9 p.m. live on the Gersnet YouTube channel. I'd recommend you check that out. I'm sponsored by Gersnet, and I'm also sponsored by Having Your Diva Dad home for Christmas, having him visit you for Christmas. Yanis Hadji's dad, a guy called Jorge Hadji, he's coming to spend Christmas with his boy. We've been hearing that. That's one of the things we've been hearing today in the world of the Scottish media. And I saw Jorge Hadji playing 4 times, as far as I can recall. I've tried that. I saw him playing 4 times, 4 different stadiums. I saw him playing at Ibrox for Galatasaray in the Champions League. I saw him playing at St James's Park against Romania at Euro 96. Sorry, for Romania against Bulgaria at Euro 96, and it was Stoichkov. Stoichkov was captain of Bulgaria, and Hagi was captain of Romania. And Stoichkov scored after 3 minutes, and that was it. It was quite the game. I saw him playing at Hampden in March 1986 for. Now, was that Kenny Douglas's 100th cap game, or was that a game against Bulgaria? The one where Franz Beckenbauer gave. I was at the two games anyway, but both friendlies. But he played in that one, Jorgi Hagi, and I saw him at Elland Road, Leeds, also during Euro 96, where they lost 2-1 to Spain. That was Romania out without winning a single point at Euro 96. But I saw him 4 different stadiums. He played for 3 times for the national team, once for Galatasaray, and he was a total diva in all those games. He was just, he was running the show. Not the one at Hampden. It was still quite early in his career, the one at Hampden. He only started playing for Romania, I think, kind of 1983-ish. But by the time he was Euro 96 and all that, and when he came to Ibrox in 99-2000, he was out of control. He was a god, and he knew he was a god. The Maradona of the Carpathians. So I can just imagine when he's staying with Giannis, it's going to be very much that kind of, like Maradona, that thing constantly talking about balls, like as in your testicles, as in scrotum stuff. Whores, it's usually, son of a whore, which will be difficult, seeing as it's, Giannis Hagi's his son, and that's obviously, and also apart from the fact it's horrifically sexist terminology, but it's just something they use in La Liga and all that, the players, and shit, everything's shit, totally shit. I think it's going to be difficult for Giannis, and it'll be Brussels sprouts, Giannis. What am I getting? What's wrong with good Bucharest sprouts? Do you remember what happened to you in Belgium? How Genk treated you? Have some balls, son. Don't let them treat you like the son of a whore. Get some proper Romanian, some Bucharest sprouts in here, and and I own this club. I'll buy this club just to get you. It's a bowling club, Dad. I just thought it'd be better if we just went to a bowling club for a dinner. All right, no, it's that good thing. I mean, what's with the heating in here? What's up with the temperature in here? Are you putting the thermostat up at all? See when I played for Barcelona and Real Madrid, it was absolutely roasting. Then I went to Istanbul, it was absolutely roasting. I can handle the heat, son. Bring on the heat. It's absolutely. I didn't freeze my nuts off. I didn't freeze my balls off in Bucharest, playing for Stoya for 3 seasons just so I could come here in some backwater because you're playing in some Mickey Mouse league. When I was playing, I played in Serie A. So did I, Dad. Who'd you play for? Brescia. I think Fiorentina are bigger than Brescia. Shut up, Giannis. Show me your balls, you son of a whore. Everything's totally shit. So it'll be difficult, I think, for Giannis over the Christmas period with his dad visiting. But the big news, I think, apart from the fact that this is going to have to be the quickest, you can already tell it's a disaster. The smoothness of this pod is totally non-existent. Although it's pretty much none of the pods I do are in any way smooth. There's no rhyme or reason to it. There's no kind of structure to it. I'm just belting this out because I've got to get moving. And this is like kind of 5:30, and I've got that I'm recording this. God knows when I'll get uploaded. I've got to get my ass out of here because I'm going for a wee bit of a Christmas celebration. I know a lot of yous the same thing. It'll be you're winding down. Hopefully most of yous out there stopped on the Friday. That's stopped Friday, the 20th of December, and you're ready to get into your Christmas holidays. Hopefully you're all for 2 weeks. I know not everybody is. I know not everybody. I know a lot of people might be lucky to get Christmas Day and Boxing Day off, or the 1st, maybe the 2nd of January as well. Some of you don't even manage that. I know a lot of people work a lot of really important jobs which don't get the publicity, they don't get the praise they deserve, and yet the whole country would fall to pieces if people didn't do these jobs throughout the festive period. And I am, of course, referring to Rangers podcasters, Rangers podders like myself, who are basically brave, going that extra mile just to keep the country going. And you're welcome. You're absolutely welcome. I will keep this going. I'm going to probably do a bit of a reduced kind of holiday service. Maybe drop the previews and just do the post-match reactions as we get into the Christmas period, because you want to spend more time with your family. You get the whole family visiting. Everybody's in the house now. It's nice and cosy. Aunties, mums and dads, in-laws, things like that, brothers, sisters, mums, dad, and you'll get in the living room and you've got to make the food for them, but everybody's helping themselves to stuff. You've got to share all the food, and you share the remote control as well for the telly, because we're watching me play games. Maybe I'll do extra. Maybe I'll actually do extra preview pods, and I'll see you for most of the games over the Christmas period. So the big news today, of course, is that Brendan Rodgers says it wasn't a penalty. That's the big news. I did a pod last night. That's why you can excuse me just battering this one out as quickly as I possibly can, because I ended up talking for like an hour and a half as my kind of come down from the League Cup final. Supposed to be the cool, calm assessment. Once everyone calmed down a bit of the League Cup final of the previous match, and it was a big match, of course, on Sunday. Devastating for us, absolutely devastating. I might have forgot to mention that last night, because I was still last night buzzing off the fact that Willie Collum had come out and just let us hear the audio for the big decision that we were all raging about, that they got wrong, and admitted that they got it wrong, and took it even further, really, than I think most Rangers fans would have when it came to the criticism he had for the VAR officials who got that decision wrong. At no point in that pod did I say that I thought there's been a bit of response, in the comment section. As I put up, it was a joke. I did say I was going to do a clickbait title for the podcast. Usually I would just do, midweek podcast or something really uninteresting like that. But I thought I would just go for it. And what have I got? SFA begs Ibrox forgiveness, and somebody did actually come back to me today and go, "That's a stupid title for a podcast." And I said, that's the idea, mate. So I'm just trying to have a laugh about it, make it so clickbaity that it's exposing the joke within itself. But I've got a bit of reaction, obviously, from people, but it's just the general reaction throughout the world of Scottish football just now. The Old Firm being thoroughly stoked up by your media. Luke Shanley today talking to Brendan Rodgers and making no attempt to tell Brendan Rodgers, yeah, but that's not what happened, mate. But that wasn't right. Just letting them go on and wind up idiots like me who can eat up this stuff from Sky, even though I know they're just at it. They're just trying to wind us all up, and they've got no interest in Rangers or Celtic fans coming to any kind of mutual understanding of the game. They want us hating each other because that's their product. It's hate. At no point during that podcast, despite some of the things people have been saying to me last night, did I say that I thought Rangers would have won the League Cup final last Sunday if we'd got a penalty. If we'd got that penalty, it was the start of extra time. The teams, the way they'd been playing in that game, had been reacting to each other's goals, just giving it enough to get back, and they were refusing to let go, each team, rather than having the energy or ability to put the game out of sight, as both teams demonstrated at various points during that game. So a Rangers goal could quite easily, maintaining the pattern of the game, have inspired a fourth Celtic goal. If we'd scored our penalty to go 4-3 up, they could have come back at us. Or maybe Celtic would have had to open up too much and we would have ended up hitting them in the counter-attack. And my point is, we don't know, okay? We just do know it should have been a penalty, and that's a major incident. And I'm always quite keen to point out the fact that because that's a major incident, and we don't know, of course, we don't know that we would have converted the penalty had we got it. But I'm always keen to point out that there's a million little incidents that are open to interpretation that could have gone the other way throughout the course of a game, that could have led to a series of circumstances. For example, I'm still raging, of course, about the 1989 Scottish Cup final. Never mind the last Scottish Cup final, where Celtic, got away with one. Let's go back to the 1989 Scottish Cup final. Another one I was on the Rangers end at. Remember, I was wearing the classic West Germany top of the time, the kind of wavy German flag across the front of it. The one they won Italia 90 in, absolute classic. I could fit into it as well. It was medium, I think. But I was absolutely devastated after that one, and it was a shy to Rangers that was given to Celtic, and we're too busy going, you what? Roy Aitken picks the ball up and shies it, and away they go. And we also had Gary Stevens standing on the ball and falling over it, which was a bit of a, that's on us not being quick enough to, us being too busy protesting the wrong decision, the blatantly wrong decision, is also something I was always keen to say, well, that's our fault as well. You got to live in the real world, you got to know these things can go wrong. But that was just a shy that went the wrong way and led directly to the only goal of the game. So just because Rangers didn't get a penalty, there could have been a shy or something, a wee kind of a foul that nobody spotted that didn't go Celtic's way on Sunday that could have led to them winning the game more easily during in normal time or whatever. I mean, you just don't know these things. I'm very keen to always throw that in there. I am not Other people are, and I think they're wrong, Rangers supporters as well, I think they're wrong to say, had we got that penalty, we would have won the game. It certainly makes it more likely, but far from definite. And as I say, you can apply it to other decisions during the game. For example, there was the trip by Kuhn on Diamande for, I think, Celtic's, the build up to Celtic's third goal. I never even noticed it at the time, and I didn't notice it the first time I watched it on television, having been told about it. I thought, what trip? Still didn't watch it. So, I can get why, officials would miss it or whatever, and then having seen it, I could get that officials have seen it. VAR officials have seen that incident and have decided it's not a foul by Kuhn, because I don't think it is. I don't think he's looking the same way. I bet, and if you're a Rangers supporter who wants to be kind of bitter about it, I bet, players are so fly these days, peripheral vision. He knew what he was doing. We can say that, but it's not provable in any way, shape or form. So I wasn't looking for a foul there. I don't think Schmeichel was particularly off his line particularly early for the penalty that he saved from Yilmaz. I'm putting that on Yilmaz, or perhaps on, Clement for letting Yilmaz take a penalty. Who knows? Though he says he judged that on the way the players have been taking them in training, the order of penalty taker. I was raging. I nearly lost a lung howling because I was at the Rangers end. I was in the Rangers end, and the penalties are taking place at the Rangers end. And every time Schmeichel came out and did the antics, they pushing it as far as he possibly could. And this is how Celtic operate. It's how most professional footballers operate. You'll definitely think our manager is doing the same thing in terms of the politicking around this incident. His press conference today saying that all of Europe that's all the whole of Europe is talking about is the Scottish League Cup final, stretching it a bit, I think. But most professional teams, they will push it if they possibly can. But I thought Celtic's MO was definitely very much, let's just see how far we can push officialdom. And the way Schmeichel was getting in the face of our players, you warn them, even if just you warn them with the first penalty, you book him for this when he does it with the second penalty, and you warn him again if he tries it again, and then it's a red card. You send them off. You've got to, and John Beaton just seems to have a kind of ongoing negotiation with Schmeichel. I'm going to no do that. I'm going to do that. Until you stop me doing it with that. By producing a card, I'm going to do that. And you're probably too scared to send off the Celtic goalkeeper during a penalty shootout. How Masonic conspiracy would that look, Brother Beaton, who was cited by Brendan Rodgers, mentioned by name, and he's left it hanging there after that defeat at Tynecastle last season when Celtic lost at Tynecastle the day after we had lost at home to Motherwell. But yet today, Brendan's all very chilled out about penalty incidents. What else? I need to recap on a few things I didn't mention in last night's pod. Yeah. It sent folk mental. It sent folk absolutely mental. I don't want Rangers supporters to go. I mean, it's up to Rangers supporters. That's just my point of view. It's up to other Rangers fans what they do, obviously. But we've got the two incensed reactions, which is Celtic fans going absolutely nuts because officials made a mistake, and it's been confirmed by officialdom that the officials made a mistake that should have given Rangers a penalty. So there's all this kind of leading argument, weighted argument stuff, straw man arguments where they'll just invent us. How does that prove you'd have won the League Cup final? It doesn't, and nobody said it did. Well, I certainly didn't anyway. But our manager is definitely leading that kind of. That's the only reason we lost it. It's the only thing he's mentioning about last week's final. So I don't blame Rangers fans for following up that tack, and I don't blame Celtic fans for thinking, wow, it's not as if that would necessarily have made a difference. It would have made a hell of a difference to the game itself had we put the penalty away, but that, again, you're into what ifs at that point. But also I think Rangers fans going completely mental and wanting to prosecute this even further. Persecute's probably a better word. The fact that we have been, the officials have come out and admitted it was so wrong. And we heard the Rangers fans listening to the audio, which we thought we would never hear. In the first part of the week, we'll never hear that audio. There's no way they'll release the audio. If you can listen, and then they do release the audio. Well, if you can listen to that audio, Alec, and think that they guys aren't bent as anything, that they don't hate Rangers, that they're not just deliberately ignoring a blatant penalty to Rangers, then you're a better man than me, or whatever like that, or you're being naive. It would be the what was intended by that statement. I think it's more a case of, number one, if your team doesn't get a penalty and you hear the officials denying them it, you're going to think they're bent because you just want everything for your team. You think your team should get everything. It's a tribal thing. You're not thinking clearly during a game. Most of us don't think clearly after a game either. But also, I think if you get to the point where nothing is enough, or no explanation is enough, they gave us the explanation. They took on board that they got it wrong. By God, did Willie Collum take on board that they got it wrong? He nailed those guys to the wall. Alan Muir and Frank Connor. He really destroyed them and has destroyed their professional reputation, probably. I don't know what the punishment's going to be. They're not getting games this weekend. We think that they were going to get demoted to the lower leagues or something for a spell, but my God. These guys really have paid without any fines or anything like that taking place. I don't know how it affects the money that they do get, even though we're not fully professional with our referees in this country. But just their reputation. Obviously, they've put a lot of time and passion and effort and energy and fitness into being officials of that level, and it's just led to them. I think it's the equivalent of Gordon Smith in the FA Cup final. Gordon Smith, what a career. We know him as a guy that's scoring against Juventus and stuff like that and helping Rangers win trebles. A phenomenal player, Gordon Smith, for Rangers, from a phenomenal footballing family. And yet, goes to England. Oh, you're the guy that missed that sitter in the FA Cup final in 1983. And Smith must score. It's one of those horrible moments where your entire career. I know we've got previous with Frank Connor, but you're going to have previous with every official because at times they won't give you stuff that you think you should have got. So I think that's what's happening to these officials here. They're going to be remembered from now on for that mistake they've made. So it's a hell of a punishment. To have something that you love doing and you've put your whole life into. This is, it's a horrendous thing for them. A horrendous thing. It's been a horrendous day for us. It's a horrendous for us not to win the League Cup. I've kind of got a thing where I've got League Cups coming at my backside. I've seen so many Rangers win the League Cup so many times in the flesh or on television throughout the years. I get a bit, and that's not the point just now because it's about beating Celtic. First time for Philip Clement. It's about us getting ourselves our first chance to retain a trophy. Retain a trophy for the first time since the travails of 2012. It would have made a massive psychological difference for us to win that last week, and that penalty decision could have affected it. But if you push it and you start doubling down, every time you are given something, every time you're given the evidence, you're given an admission of guilt, an admission of culpability, of a mistake being made, and it's not enough and you push it, eventually people will just get defensive. The governing bodies will get defensive again, and they'll do that dismissive thing again, and we'll just go back to football clubs and football fans basically being treated like idiots because we don't know when to stop. And I don't think you can really do anything. There has to be a general agreement that you can't replay the game or anything like that. If we replayed the League Cup final, Celtic would win it 5-0 because they'd be so incensed. By the time we took the pitch for that game, this has never happened before. It's an absolute nightmare. It's only because it's Rangers. They're trying to take our trophy off us by via Masonic conspiracy or whatever it is. They would be so psyched up. They would probably. It would be doubly embarrassing. It'd become an embarrassment for us. And it's just, football doesn't have time for that. It just very rarely happens. The only incident I remember, things that have happened, games have been replayed for strange reasons, but the one I always remember was Sheffield United against Arsenal at Highbury, in the old Arsenal Stadium, in I think it was the FA Cup, and it was one of those ones we were supposed to give the ball back. It was sporting a gesture because somebody put the ball out for an injury or something like that, and they didn't, and Arsenal went and scored the goal without really knowing. And there was such a hullabaloo about it. Arsenal were so kind of ashamed of what had happened that they agreed to replay the game. But it takes really unique circumstances for something like this to happen. This is a major final. It goes to extra time and it goes to penalties, so we can find a winner on the day. And there will be mistakes all across that game the other day on Sunday at Hampden that went against Celtic. Referee mistakes that went against Celtic. Not of the same import, not of the same obviousness, but all in all, it could end up having affected the game the other way. So I would want to park it there. But I did say last night that I thought it was inevitable Celtic would come out. I thought it was going to be more along the lines of, but with joking, not joking, either Peter Law or Rodgers or both of them would imply that Rangers are guaranteed to win the Old Firm game on the 2nd of January because the officials will feel under such pressure to give them penalties and give them everything going. I thought that's how it would work, knowing their MO over the last decades with Peter Lawwell. and going back to 2016 with a slight interruption for Brendan Rodgers. But somebody sent me the Sky interview with Brendan Rodgers today, and it has to be mentioned. What he's done here is it's very clever. You know, if you're going to be sleazy in the way you approach being a manager of a football club, but it's very clever. It's undeniably clever. But he's done that whole thing of emphasis. He hasn't at any point said it absolutely was not a penalty for Rangers, you know. But he's just the when he's asked about it by Luke Shanley, you know, he does not go down the line that I have just gone down of saying, "Aye, Rangers might have got the penalty. It happens to all of us in these games. It could have went another way." You know, there's other decisions we didn't get. There's been other games where we didn't get decisions. He's a tosser with the whole thing of. I've now been the manager of 20 Rangers Celtic games or Celtic Rangers games because he won't say Old Firm, which is pathetic in itself. No, but that's up to them. And the narrative, what was it? There's always a narrative. There's always something in the narrative after the game, and it's because he's only lost one. So basically, he's saying, you know, every time Rangers get beat or they don't win the game, and there's been 19 of them that they haven't won in my time in Old Firm games, they're always whinging on about something, you know. Now, can't say that he doesn't say it's us. He just says there's always something in the narrative after. That's me reading into that. That's me deciding that's what he's implying, and the credence to my take on that is given by what he then says when asked about the incident again. He just keeps emphasising this totally bogus take on the incident that's doing the rounds amongst the Celtic support online and what have you, which says that the foul was, I mean, it's a complete deliberate or otherwise misunderstanding of the rules. That the foul, the referee blew for a foul outside the box because the foul initially happened outside the box. It then continued into the box, which makes it a penalty by the laws of the game. And we've had the head of refereeing, the head of Scottish refereeing, saying that his VAR officials were disgracefully wrong, that they were so wrong. It's, you know, the whole of refereeing knows that they are wrong. It's a factual overturn, Willie Collum says. This is the top referee's man in the country, the top refereeing official in the country, the guy in charge of Scottish refereeing, is saying that his two VAR officials got it completely wrong. Yet Brendan Rodgers, a couple of times in this interview, he eventually said, he emphasises, I think the guy's blown initially for the foul outside the box. I think that's what most of us, just let it hang there. Just let it hang there. You know, he's not saying it wasn't a penalty, you know, but he's just putting that, he's just re-emphasising the kind of QAnon style misinformation that's been spread by Celtic supporters, be it through ignorance or, you know, just kind of willful malevolence. But he then goes on to say, it's still about interpretation. VAR is still about interpretation. The Celtic have hated VAR. I maintain that Celtic, who've campaigned against VAR the moment it was mooted to come into Scotland, through their mouthpieces in the media, Sutton, Hearts and whatever, and obviously Brendan Rodgers himself, I think it's because they want, if you, as a club, and some of the reactions I've had to the video would back this up. I've had stand-up fights in bars, you know, at nights out with guys I worked with, Celtic fans who once had a few pints in them. You know, they're more angry about you implying there is no SFA conspiracy against them, you know, historically as a club, than they are about, you know, if Rangers had pumped Celtic the previous week and you're like, pumped you 3-0 last week, like, I'll get it up you, Alec. I don't think there's really any conspiracy. I get, what? You know, it's like you've insulted their mother or something like that because it's an article of faith. And I feel that Celtic's board, Peter Lawwell, etc., for 20 years, has used that to create a way of winning games or gaining an advantage, getting games played at a time that suits them, or getting games cancelled at a time that suits them, etc., by just shouting the loudest. And the minute you have, and they're completely, as I say, decrying referees all the time. It's a historic thing with Celtic. Their support does not trust the SFA. The SFA are the same as the Masonic Lodge, or the same as the Orange Lodge, I think. They're just anti-Celtic for religious and quasi-religious reasons. So, to then have a system that double checks referees, that double checks every decision, should be exactly. Celtic should have been the club that was campaigning for this. If they don't trust the officials, but it very quickly became about who is it that's checking. Who is it that's checking the decisions? We don't know if they're no Mason. Oh, aye, that feels good. Thank God. That's a nice, safe, warm cloak around his eye. They're bent as well. That's fine. That's fine. Why? Why is that? Why don't you want double checks? I'm a Rangers supporter. We were denied a massive decision that could have swung that game, an unbelievably tight game on Sunday, a game that we really needed to win, that could have set a historic precedent. You know what I mean? Just it's a time in our history as Rangers supporters that we really need to get a win over Celtic, and for it to have brought a cup, let us retain a trophy for the first time since since before 2012 would have been huge for us. But I still want VAR in place, because VAR makes it even more obvious when an error is made. It's inexplicable. Rodgers today is constantly thrown in his little interview with Luke Shanley of Sky. It's human error. We've been saying for the word go. I've been saying from the word go that human error is still always going to be a factor with VAR. It's subjective. It's subjective. The head of refereeing has gone to great lengths last night to say it is a factual mistake they've made. There is no room for human error, and that's a factual overturn. It's a complete degradation of their duty. I'm not wanting them punished anymore. These guys, I'm not wanting to pursue the matter anymore. That's enough for me. The SFA statement on this, what Willie Collum said on this, but there's no getting away. It's complete negligence when it comes to what Frank Connor and Alan Muir have or have not done in this case. But it's it's just human error. That's always going to be in there. It's always subjective. And what Rodgers is saying there, and Law has always implied this as well, is that we can still argue the bit. If you can create this idea that there's no such thing as a hard fact, fake news, I mean, it is Trumpian. It's a Trumpian tactic. It's an Elon Musk style tactic. There's people out there who are total zealots. They'll always be on your side. Just keep feeding them what they need, and everybody else, it suits them to go along with you. The people who understand you're at it, but can still be on your side and are quite happy to back you, they'll keep their mouth shut. It's total QAnon stuff. It really is. They want to keep it so that it can be argued, so that human error still applies, so that it's subjective. That way, if Celtic scream the loudest, their political might can still get them decisions, can still get stuff, and it can certainly have the careers ended. I mean, John Beaton, the way Rodgers went after him after their defeat to Hearts at Tynecastle last season, and compare that with how he's talking about these guys who made a decision last week that was a factual overturn. It should have been a factual overturn. They've looked away from the screen. They've ignored the evidence that was getting replayed right in front of their eyes. But yet, Brendan Rodgers says, obviously, clearly, one of the VAR guys felt the initial foul took place. It says, away from the incident when it rolled on. Obviously, clearly, one of the VAR guys felt the initial foul took place away from the incident when it rolled on. And that's his specialised opinion as an official and an experienced official. And they'll just mumble something about, it's before we get involved in the whole penalty thing. He's letting the emphasis is all on the fact that these guys are good referees. They're good officials. They're really experienced, and they're specialised. That's their speciality. So if they don't think it was a penalty, it can't be. It's the fact that they don't think it's a penalty. It's why they've been hauled over the coals by their boss. It's quite unbelievable take from Brendan Rodgers today, and it's why I want him crushed, and I want Rangers to eventually just destroy him. And of course, football doesn't work like that. It's never going to happen like that. But they're ramming the subjectivity into an argument about something that is just basically yes or no, completely factual. We've got Dundee tomorrow. We've got Dundee at Ibrox. The last time we played Dundee at Ibrox, we put them out in the League Cup 3-0, and it's quite appropriate, I suppose. We played them in the first game at Ibrox this season. It's the latest improvement to our beautiful stadium. It was unveiled, the new disabled facilities, the extra rows at the front of the back of the Copeland Road stand. So it's nice that they're coming back for this 125th birthday of Ibrox. I don't know if anything's planned by Rangers at all. Dundee are 7th in the table. On 19 points. They've had 5 league wins this season. They're 2 points behind St Mirren, who are we're going to be playing next, and St Mirren are 6th in the table. They're just into the top half, and St Mirren are 4 points behind Motherwell in 4th, and we're 3rd, and we've got Aberdeen to catch. We're 2 points behind Aberdeen with a game in hand. We have got to make sure that we get ourselves refocused. The manager's pre-match pressure today was a bit weird. I was quite happy I listened to the whole thing and found out at the end that there'd been a bit of fluging about Ibrox, because although I thought at first he was being sombre, really, really down about, and probably emphasising it, doing his own version of the Brendan Rodgers politicking around this penalty that we didn't get in the League Cup final. He said it's something he would remember for the rest of his life. It's something that the whole of Europe had been talking about. People all across Europe have been talking about it, but I doubt the whole of Europe has been talking about it. But he seemed really hit. And while he was saying that it's for him and other people at the club to deal with the fallout from that incident, the players, and he'd been preaching this to them all week, had to focus on the Dundee game, had to get back up for the task at hand. But it sounded like he was saying that, but he didn't believe it in any way. But I found out later on there'd been flu. He mentioned there'd been flu going about Ibrox. He'd had it himself. So hopefully that's why he sounded a bit down, because it's not like him to be so downbeat, basically. He's just very, very downbeat. But I think Tony Docherty and Derek McInnes are inseparable. Former managerial colleagues. Tony Docherty, he was going to be coming to Ibrox as Derek McInnes' assistant manager, or he was never going to be coming to Ibrox as Derek McInnes' assistant manager. But obviously a good manager in his own right, and him and Derek McInnes went their separate ways. Tony Docherty became Dundee manager at the start of last season after being promoted into the top flight again. And a crazy thing goes on with Kilmarnock and Dundee. A crazy thing where they've drawn every single game they played against each other until this season. And they played each other at Dens, and I think Dundee were 2-0 up, then the man sent off, and Kilmarnock come back and beat them 3-2 with these late goals. And then it must have been because of the League Cup semis or something like that, why we're playing Dundee for the first time in the league tomorrow. But it's the first time we're playing Dundee in the league, and it's nearly the end of the year. We must have been due to play them in one of the dates we were playing another League Cup match. So they've obviously filled in one of those dates with another game against Kilmarnock, and it was again at Dens Park. They've played their two home fixtures against Kilmarnock. At this time, Kilmarnock went 2-0 up, and Dundee come back and won the game 3-2. And I think they met again recently at Rugby Park, and they just drew again. So it's like they're kind of inseparable as managers when they come up against each other, Tony Docherty and Derek McInnes. And with Derek McInnes, when he last came to Ibrox, he got beat 6-0. So that, to me, that makes it straightforward. That's the logic I'm using. We should be beating Dundee 6-0 tomorrow, because the most important thing tomorrow is to see that the Rangers players are not suffering in a kind of pathetic, feeling sorry for themselves way because of losing that game last week. I think we've been slightly undermined almost by the SFA coming out and taking complete ownership of the rick they made of that decision at Hampden, the penalty decision, because it doesn't let us. I know a lot of Rangers supporters will feel completely angry, basically just wanting the team to go out there and take revenge on the whole of Scottish football. This is I want to see Brendan Rodgers. Brendan Rodgers. It's my job. As a Rangers supporter, I hate Brendan Rodgers. It's not very original. I don't hate him anyway. I don't even know the guy. I passed him a couple of times in the street and that, but I don't know the guy. And this is the way football goes these days. But the one I always remember when you're looking for something to justify your total hatred for a guy, Walter Smith's my absolute idol. When Celtic fans, of a particular, the bitter bent will always talk about that. Man, at the time he was shouting and swearing at Chick Young in that interview. That's how nice Walter was. Well, do you want a manager who can't shout and swear and intimidate folk? You run an institution, you're going to get a lot of idiots coming after you. You've got to know how to deal with them. But the one for me, Brendan Rodgers, was when we were, in fact, was it Kashinia was the manager or Murty? Well, we're terrible anyway. We're absolutely terrible. We just come up for the lower leagues, really bad, and we'd taken tankings off Celtic. But I think we went to Parkhead and we drew with them, and it was quite unexpected. It was one where Clinton Hill equalised late on. We played really well in the game, and we got the equaliser. And I think it actually cost Celtic was it the season that they won everything? They won the treble. They won everything unbeaten. I think it might have been, so it's 2015-16, 2016-17. But Clinton Hill cost them 100% home record, I think, in the league with that equaliser. And then, of course, there was a bit of backs to the wall at the end of it. was also a 0-0 we had maybe the following season at Park. So I don't know. It's one of those two games anyway where we're kind of hanging on a bit at the end, as you usually do, a bit of an assault on our goal towards the end. And Clint Hill had a penalty instant, a potential penalty or something like that. So at the end of the game, Celtic didn't get a penalty. On comes that's it. Full time, and on come the managers and that shake hands. They go into the park and they're talking to, they're shaking hands with the opposition players, and lovely scenes. There's this Clint Hill guy's been involved with English football, Northern Ireland, etc. There's Brendan Rodgers and Clint Hill having that kind of wee chat and a laugh and all that, because Celtic have won the league, they're going to win everything. Rangers are terrible. There's no real long term harm done. And they're chatting away, having a wee one-to-one, kind of mano, two professionals. They're doing everything except putting the hands over the mouth thing. And then we get the post-match reactions, and there's, Brendan Rodgers going, I was just talking to Clint Hill there, and he was telling me they totally got away with one. He thought it was a penalty, and he totally got away with one. He's really relieved. You prick, you absolute prick. Who does that? The kind of guy that goes on a night out and stays sober so he can gossip about what everybody did when they're pissed. That's horrendous. Sell your granny to protect your job, and maybe our manager's doing the same today. But Rangers, I feel just now, we don't want to lose the obvious progress. Suddenly we're sitting there. We lost this League Cup final, but suddenly we've got We've got the CEO we've been wanting for ages. We've got the chairman. That almost got unnoticed, totally under the radar. We've got the chairman we wanted. We've got Niels Coppin doing his technical director kind of guru thingy. The manager himself is really justified in what he's been telling us all season when times have been tough, when the football's not been very attractive. He's been telling we were getting there, we're rebuilding. We've got all that going on, and suddenly I think we've also got the SFA have come out and give us an inkling that the Masonic conspiracy, it might be time to renegotiate and get that going again. I just want to see Rangers maintain that. My name's Alec Anderson. Vicar experiments, but 'tis blasphemy. Dismissing thoughts of progress as the mark of devilry, Watch the muscles twitch for a brand new switch. You're dying to switch. Right, it's Susie and the Banshees, Switch. I don't usually announce the song that I'm singing, and it's the bit that most of you are hanging on for. Alex sings. It's a lovely thing. Susie and the Banshees, Switch, the song Switch from the album The Scream, just a phenomenal album. I'm hearing it this a decade or so after it came out, and I first, probably into the early 90s before I heard The Scream, but I was already going through a kind of heavy Susie and the Banshees phase from my teen years. I'd heard a few of their tracks in those years. My cousin, like a second cousin, she looked like Susie, so she'd had all the gear on that, and I can remember that as a wee kid. Remember her in the late 70s, wearing all that kind of gear and all that. But Susie and the Banshees, absolutely phenomenal. I totally love them. And I think sometimes it was a B-side. I think it's Metal Postcards, another track from that album, The Scream, where I think the B-side was Love and Avoid. If you look up Susie and the Banshees, Love and Avoid, is it something else? Is that the programme that... No, it's... I think, is it something else? It's one of these kind of teen programmes from the 70s and late 70s, and it's Susie and the Banshees doing a live performance of Love and Avoid. It'll come up if you just look up Love and Avoid. It's phenomenal. It's one of my favourite ever. Susie and the Banshees performances to look up on YouTube, and I'm half pissed. And I could never make up. I'm watching the drummer, and from that album, I assumed, I'd watched that video for years and assumed it was Budgie. But I knew they'd changed, Sid Vicious was in the very first lineup with Susie and the Banshees. Marco Perrone, the guy for Adam and the Ants, he was in the first lineup. Peter Felton, he was the guitar, one of the original guitarists. And then it was John Mackay was on guitar. And I know Robert Smith from The Cure, it was in and out of Susie and the Banshees a few times. I think it's him in the Love and Avoid performance, but they're also bloody young. It's hard to tell. I thought it was Budgie on drums, but it's going to be Kenny Morris. I think it's Kenny Morris on drums because it's that lineup. Or the Hong Kong Garden. I love John McGeer. John McGeer's my favourite Susie and the Banshees figure, even more favourite than Susie Sue. He's my favourite guitarist just ever. The stuff he did for Susie and the Banshees. You'll know him from Magazine, also Visage. Greenock, Port Glasgow, I think. Died young, unfortunately. And after he got out of the music business, I think he was training to be a nurse or something like that. But it's Kenny Morris on drums, and it's John Mackay was on guitar at that time. I don't know when that thing's recorded. It's something because Kenny Morris and John Mackay famously ran out on Susie and the Banshees. They couldn't handle it anymore. They were scared of Susie, and they left them after a kind of public appearance at a record shop in Aberdeen. And just, I don't know, we're chasing Aberdeen. We're chasing down a revived Aberdeen just now. We've got to get in front of them. Never mind catching Celtic and getting a hold of Celtic the 2nd of January. See you next Thursday, Brendan. See you next Thursday, Brendan. I'm just saying. See you next Thursday. It's not this coming Thursday. It's the following Thursday, the 2nd of January, that we'll see Brendan. I'm just being nice. You know, that's the way you do it. That's the way you do it. And they switched. They had to get John McGeoch in, get Budgie in, and Susie ends up marrying Budgie, and John McGeoch is just a god of guitars, and you get what was it? Kaleidoscope album, and Juju. It's a phenomenal album, but I think I just for years and years, in my younger years, I just thought, oh, that's Budgie on drums, and that'll be John McGeoch on guitar, and I think it's Robert Smith in this live appearance on this kids kind of teenagers program in the 70s, but on guitar. But it's definitely it's Kenny Morris on drums, and they switched up. It's all but a switch, and I feel as if the really tenuous link here is Rangers have switched. It is totally switched from when the last time we had a Dundee club at Ibrox, when we dropped those points to Dundee United. The only worry is we don't like a break. I'm really glad there's no midwinter break this season, because Rangers famously would be terrible when we come back. Since we got back into top flight in 2016, we've been terrible after any kind of midwinter break. But we're terrible after international breaks this year. We've been terrible. That one each draw with Dundee United, our last bad performance, or our last truly bad result anyway. It's a disastrous result. It was a horrible result last Sunday, but it's no disgrace to lose to Celtic for all I'm bad mouthing them just now. But the last terrible kind of performance and result was that Dundee United game at Ibrox, and that came after, that was an international break, wasn't it? We beat United at Tannadice after an international break, but that was a terrible game. Not a lot happened in that game at all. It was 1-0, going on 1-0, and I think we lost to Kilmarnock after international break. We've just been awful after any kind of break, and this is the first time we haven't had a midweek game since God was a boy. So 6 days off is a lot of time for Rangers. I hope we are ready for this. I hope we are properly up for this tomorrow. I hope we're sharp enough. The manager says, apart from the flu, John Souttar obviously still injured, but there's no new injuries since the Celtic game, so that's good. But the thing for me is Rangers seem to have, getting back to my tenuous point, switched it up since that United game. We've got players coming back from injury. Yanis Hadji, the contract negotiations, that all get sorted out. The contract war that was going on, the kind of standoff, that gets sorted out, and he's added so much more than I expected him to. I'm going to have to apologise for the rest of the season. Having said I didn't really care if Yanis Hadji come back or not, and even then it wasn't a malicious way. I just thought, well, he's not interested. We need guys that are fully committed, but it's the continental way of operating. He was engaging in, and now his dad's coming over, and his dad, who said he has to go somewhere else when we were negotiating his contract, and when he was getting dropped with the first team, is now saying, Rangers are great, that's fine, he should stay there forever. So that's good. But we've maintained, the European thing has just maintained on a level to the point where we've beaten Spurs. We drew with Spurs. It felt like we beat them. We drew with Spurs last Thursday, and then Spurs have beaten Southampton and basically cost their manager his job, a guy we know well, a guy I saw scoring against Hearts at Ibrox. And with Spurs then put Manchester United out of the League Cup last night, 4-3. So they've scored 9 goals in the last 2 games, Spurs, against Southampton and Manchester United, who we will be playing in our next Europa League game. But they can only get one past Rangers, and we should really have beaten them last Thursday. There's just a real vibe, to quote Paul McStay, there's a buzz about the place. A real vibe about it is just now. Things are definitely switched up. There's a change, and I don't want either the extended break we've had, compared to our usual schedule, or the hullabaloo and the pain around that defeat on penalties last Sunday to stop the players continuing to switch up, continuing to change the entire vibe around Rangers from what it was September, October, into November. And I say that goes to the board, that goes to, we're getting CEO and we've got a chairman, and and our CEO seems to have hit the ground running, eliciting that phenomenal, phenomenal apology from Willie Collum, the likes of which I have never heard before. Quite fantastic. Now, is that it? I'm sorry, folks, that's a bit rambly, a bit all over the place. I am trying to think if there's anything else I should be saying to you. I'm just showing you my big baldy head to distract you while I wonder if there's anything else I should have been talking to you. I'm just going to end this one tonight. I'm going to rush off and I'm going to get very drunk. And I hope you guys are too. I'm going to get lots of nice stuff to eat, hopefully. I'll try and leave some for other people. But I'm going to talk to you tomorrow after the game at Ibrox, to a wee post-match reaction pod from outside Ibrox, the second Ibrox, which, as I say, it's its official 125th birthday tomorrow. And this is Simon Inglis, the famous football grounds of Great Britain, United Kingdom, initially England and Wales, but one of the many editions of this fantastic work on football stadiums. And I think it's the first place I'd read this. But first Ibrox proved too small for Rangers' growing popularity, and in 1899, after the unprecedented feat of winning the league without dropping a point, Rangers became a limited liability company and developed their new ground on the adjacent site. Gradually, the new ground started to dwarf first Ibrox, whose stands were already partially dismantled by the time the last match was played there, on 9th December 1899. It was actually the 16th. A playing field, commented the Scottish umpire stoically, becomes like a friend, and the wrench at parting is a bit stiff. "Way hey," said the News of the World, or the Scottish Sun, even though it didn't exist then. And yeah, I've mentioned liability company. Stuff's been crazy. The stuff we have been through at our second Ibrox, which is our fourth or fifth home altogether, over the last 125 years, has been absolutely nuts. And all we want to see tomorrow is Rangers going out there and continuing this upturn in form and this general feel-good vibe, making sure last Sunday's defeat is parked and the controversy around it is parked as well. And I've not given you a team. Aye, that's a chance to ramble on again. The crazy thing is, I think we're seeing that James Tavernier, that a few people that are heavily invested, Rangers fans, Rangers people that don't like James Tavernier, I think they've got a bit confused when he's started scoring goals and stuff and getting assists over the last few weeks. So they're trying to find ways that it's not actually working. Apparently he holds back Czerny. Czerny doesn't score the goals or do as well as he usually does when he's playing with Tav, which I don't see that at all. I can see the goal stats, okay, but I don't see why that's James Tavernier's fault. And then there's the corners thing. The thing about the corners, and that's definitely get a lot more legitimacy. Let's Tav slows us down because he's got to trot down and take the corners, and it gets soldier like that. I know Brendan Rodgers spin style. He just trots down slowly to take the corners, doesn't he? He gets down there as fast as possible to take the corners because he's a very good deliverer of the ball, Tav. But they've not been working. We've not been scoring goals from corners at all. Whereas we scored one goal from a short corner last week in that cup final against Celtic, and we scored another goal when Igaman puts the ball into Diamondi. For the second goal we scored, it comes from pretty much the same area, the same bit of the wing that you would get to from a short corner, which Czerny puts the ball over to Danilo to score from for the third goal. So I think it's fine. I think that's absolutely spot. If we can keep the ball moving, don't do the whole corner thing, don't do the outswingers from each side, each corner, take a short corner. Derek McInnes commented on the game against Kilmarnock. We won that 6-0. Derek McInnes commented on the fact his players were kind of just frightened by Rangers. They were basically kind of bedazzled. I like to get bedazzled. I'll be getting bedazzled for my night out, obviously my Christmas night out. But these opposition players, and we saw even Celtic, who, undoubtedly, no argument, the fact are the best team in the country, have been for quite a while. They couldn't handle Rangers playing that way last Sunday's quick corners, keep it moving. And we've got the players now. Hadji, Bajrami, Danilo, Igaman's a bit of a sensation. These guys are all creating absolute havoc amongst opposition. Nico Raskin, an absolute destroyer, chewing up the park. Diamande was sensational last week at times in that cup final. That's when I did back up. When things were going a bit quiet for Diamande, I thought, no, I like him, and I would say that. Maybe we should stick by him. We're just having trouble finding where exactly he should play. My problem with tomorrow is, and probably the reason I almost tried to get away with not mentioning this, is I don't know who we should be playing, who we should be resting, because the fact of the matter is we've had 6 days off, so we should be able to start the same team that we started against Celtic, and they should be able to go out there and perform again. But you're now looking at it with, you've got St Mirren and Motherwell in short order after this. St Mirren and Boxing Day, and Motherwell between that and the Celtic game a week on Thursday. So it's how you're going to mix the squad up. The manager today more or less said we'll need to be cuffing somebody. He basically said we'll need to be 3-0 up at half time before I'm going to bring in risk. Cortez is going to be in the squad, but he's not going to get on the park unless we're absolutely cruising in the game. He's not going to be starting games. But I think Balogun and Proper played absolutely fine last week. Proper especially. Balogun getting blamed for the Celtic's, what was it, their second goal? First goal in the game, I can't really remember, but it was bad. But I think it was a kind of just an unfortunate collection of errors. That one, Raskin was involved in that as well. I think it was the second goal Celtic scored. So I don't know. Balogun also great in the way he went through on goal towards the end of the first half. He could have laid it off better to somebody, but he's good going forward as well. He's got good football sense, Balogun. Sterling is there as an option. I'm quite happy Big Dujon coming on and playing centre half. But right now I actually think it would be Proper that would be staying, which is, again, the switch up. Proper was a write-off. Scores an own goal in his debut. Is getting ragdolled by St Mirren at Ibrox and stuff like that. He's been getting a hard time from Rangers support, Proper, but I think we're seeing now the kind of player he can be. He's settling in. He's another one of these things that's becoming a total bonus for us. It's a good thing rather than a bad thing. Tomorrow I would go with Balogun and Proper again and keep Sterling ready to come on, perhaps for Tav in a later game, or maybe just need to use Sterling. It's the same when it comes to the midfield. The sitting two in midfield, we know he's going to play 4-2-3-1. Raskin and Diamande was such a revelation last week. They did so well that I would want to play them all the time, but Raskin and Diamande put so much into games that you think maybe we should hold them back for this one. Connor Barron, who was quiet against Ross County, hasn't been featuring in the last few games. Maybe it's time for him to come back in and work. You're dropping Diamande or Raskin and having Connor Barron in there to take some of the weight. And then the problem comes in, it's a selection problem. It's not about resting anybody. It's just we've got excess players now. Thank God. Dessers is third choice striker now, which is an amazing thing. Suddenly he was the only guy, and he got a lot of he got a lot of hard time. It was OTT for me, Dessers, because he was our only option. He was our only fit and ready striker for the first 3-4 months of this season, and we got 10 goals out of him. He's got another 2 since then. Since we've had Igaman and Danilo available to us, but Danilo's scoring, Igaman's scoring. I like the idea of him. Czerney's got to play in that right hand side as far as I'm concerned. You could have a situation where Czerney gets rested, Tav plays wide right, and Sterling comes in at right back. I would rather have Czerney up there wide right, wide left. I want Hadji on the park. I know that's the cheek of me, but I want Hadji doing that thing, doing 10 from wide left, which then lets you have Danilo sitting behind Igaman, and they'll not play it like that. But that's effectively how it's happening. But that means you're late. That means Bajrami doesn't get a game. So I can't actually tell you the team. I can't tell you the team that I want to go out there tomorrow. I want it to field, but I just can tell you that I'm going to be happy. The chances are I'll be pretty happy with whoever is out there, because our squad's looking good, and the immediate future is looking good, and I just hope Rangers can go out there tomorrow. And this time last year we got a hard time from Dundee. They went a goal up against us. It was December anyway, last season. They went a goal up against us. They scored first. Cifuentes got sent off that one, but we ended up winning the game 3-1. I don't think... The only thing is worrying about this flu bug. Sometimes you can see players suffering from a flu bug. Apparently we're supposed to have been over it, according to the manager today, but I don't know. That's something that doesn't really disappear in the space of 6 days. So that can be a concern. But I just hope we go out there tomorrow and we dispense with Dundee, and we dispense with them in short order to show that we're completely focused, we're completely up for it, and it's a total SFA Vatican conspiracy. Okay, thanks folks.